Hey there, Stampin' friends. Welcome to Movie Monday with Jody Breckbill, Stampin' Queen. Today's technique I'm going to show you is called No Line Watercolor. And you can see that I've used this stamp from the Birthday Blooms stamp set, and it kind of looks like it's very watercolory, like you really can't see the nice intricate lines of the stamp. So this card came from Pinterest, I think. It's an artisan card that I found online. I think Marissa Gunn is the name of the girl who created it, and this is a direct copy of hers. I'll look it up and then tag her in the video here just so that you guys can know where I did get this idea from, because it's not an original. But to start off with, we are going to need some watercolor paper, and we're going to use, like I said, the Birthday Blooms stamp set. This is in our Occasions catalog. And the trick to doing the no line watercolor is stamping your image with a very light ink. Now I'm using Sahara sand. In the technique, when I saw this on the website that this girl had created, she said to stamp off and then stamp, but I think my ink is very, very light. It probably needs re-inked. So when I did do that, it was way too light and I really couldn't see the image at all. So I'm going to stamp full strength, but just do it nice and lightly on my watercolor paper. So stamp yours, and if you feel like it seems like a little too light, then just stamp it off and stamp on your paper and give that a shot. So the first step I did was to use Hello Honey and my watercolor, or my aqua painter. I always keep a paper towel handy when I'm working with my water pens, my aqua painters, because sometimes they're a little bit too wet and then they really make a big mess on my paper. So I like to have just a little bit of or a little piece of paper towel with me. And so what you're going to do is just kind of paint in where the center of that flower is going to be. And one good thing to do with this technique is to kind of walk away sometimes, let it dry a little bit, because you'll be surprised at how light it will dry, even if you think it's a little bit too dark when you're starting, and you let it have some time to absorb into the paper. You'll notice when you come back that you could add more ink in. So it's always better to add more than you just can't take it away. So that is Hello Honey, just a little bit in the center. And then I'm going to do Blushing Bride, which I don't have. Sorry, not always prepared for this video. I think I have everything, and then when I go to look, oh, it's gone. So I'm just going to take it kind of dark and outline the leaves, or I guess these would be petals. Okay, so I'm not going to do this whole thing because you'll get the gist of it, and you can always go back in and add in more color as you need. So that way I know where the petals are as I'm coloring. So that way it's already kind of traced out for me. Now you do want to keep adding color until you see the Sahara sand lines sort of start to disappear. Okay, so once I have them outlined, then I start filling in the center of the petals. And then that's where you can create your shading, because you'll know, kind of imagine where the sun would shine on this flower, and then you'll be able to add in some different dark and light highlights. Okay, so you can see how that's starting to come together with my Blushing Bride. Okay, so then after I have that layer added in, I'm going to do a little bit of Watermelon Wonder. This would be my darkest pink to add some shading. And so there's some little lines in here that are part of the flower petals, and that's where I would do just a little bit of my darker color to highlight that. maybe do a little bit of trace around these inner lines here, just so that my shading is showing up. And then, like I said, if you feel like it's getting a little bit too dark, you just kind of walk away, let it have some time to dry. Okay, so that's what you would do over the rest of the flower. And for the leaves, oh, I just stuck my finger right there in that ink. For the rest of the leaves, I did, the lightest color would be Old Olive. And so I just did a trace of the leaves there. Now, with watercolor paper, it is not, it's a very porous paper. It's not nice and tightly woven like your regular cardstock. And so that's whenever the wetness, the water that's in your pens or your blender pens will start to bleed into those porous areas. So you do start to lose the solid, crisp image. That's the point of watercolor paper. So when you see that start to happen, it looks like it's bleeding and it's starting to go outside the line that you've just stamped. That's okay. That's kind of the look that we're going for. Okay, so once I have them all colored, then I would come in with my Mossy Meadow and do the same thing. This time with that dark ink, I'm going to use that to do my highlighting close to my flower, and then also like some of the little veins that are starting to run through, I would add the darker ink in there. And each time you do this, it's going to come out different. So yours is not going to look like mine. And even if you make 2 or 3 of these are all going to come out different because of the way the paper is, the way, the amount of ink that you have on your brush, and the fact that they're handcrafted really makes them come out different every single time. And that's kind of fun. That's part of why we do this, is because it's our own twist on our project. Okay, so then I'm going to come in there with a little bit of Old Olive then after. But I didn't want you to have to watch me do this entire thing. I'm just trying to give you the gist of it so that you can create your own at home. And then my final step, there's like a little stem that sticks off of here, and that is going to be soft suede. And the same thing, I'm going to kind of do a really light color. I don't know, am I on the video? I feel like I'm kind of, there we go. Get back into the center here. I'm kind of working a little closer to me, which sometimes gets me farther away from my camera. Okay, so just add in a little bit of color on here on this stem. And still remembering that the point is you kind of want to blend away the Sahara sand pieces, or the Sahara sand images, the line there. And then you can go back in and add your darker color for shading and highlighting. Okay, so once I have that done, I'm going to come back with my Hello Honey, and I'm just going to stamp this little, little dots, like all around this flower that I just created, just for a little bit of added texture. Okay, and let's see, what else do we want to do? I went ahead and punched out a piece of designer paper. That is our birthday bouquet designer paper, and it actually coordinates with our stamp set. And I'm not sure what size it is. Again, I'll have that in my notes here on the video, but that is with a circle punch. And then I went ahead and heat embossed. So I stamped Dear Friend and Versamark, did the gold embossing powder, heat embossed that on a piece of vellum, and attached these two together. It's just so that I have a little bit of the paper showing through a little bit of the paper showing through my vellum. Then I'm just going to attach that here in the corner. And it doesn't matter if you can see a little bit of your mono adhesive or your snail adhesive through there, because we have a button that's going to go on top of that. So I took up a piece of Blushing Bride cardstock and another piece of our cardstock vellum. And again, I'm going to put my adhesive more towards away from the edges, I guess I want to say, with this, because you can see the adhesive through it, but this is going to attach on, and so I don't need to worry too much about if I can see my adhesive or not, because my watercolor paper is going to cover it up. My final step that I did was I wanted to do paper piercing the whole way around here, and so I have my paper piercing mat. But I have somewhere along the way lost my straight edge that I have. There's one of these that is just all straight, and I can't find it anywhere. So I'm going to compromise a little bit and use this banner right here and just follow the line. And so what I did was, if you can see that there's a black outline here, and that would, if you die cut this out with one of our framelits, it would fit exactly at the size where this black line is. But I'm going to lay the black line on top of my cardstock, and then I am going to just do the inside holes and just go straight down the line. And I'm not going to do the whole thing because I haven't finished watercoloring yet. But you'll be able to get the gist of what my finished product will look like. So can you see that I did a little paper piercing holes along there just to give it a little extra texture. And then my final step is going to take one of our designer vintage buttons and some of our gold thread. Now this is my little trick of how I work with the gold thread. There's two pieces there, I just need one. It's kind of like working with a big piece of hair, and so I'm not sure how well it's going to show up here, but I fold it, I take my piece and cut it, and I fold it in half, and then I fold it in half again. So once I have that, I pinch it in the middle, and so I kind of have some loops on one side, and I have my straight edges and a loop on the other side, and then I grab a glue dot, and I'm going to put my glue dot on the center of my button, and then where I have this pinched in the center, I'm just going to attach that with the glue dot, and then you can kind of spread it out a little bit. It's very random. There's really no rhyme or reason to, or right or wrong way to do this type of thing. And it's going to attach then right here on your piece that you did the circle with the embossing. So again, I'm not going to quite do that because I do want to finish my card. But again, you can see where I put the button. There's my gold thread that's attached with a glue dot. And then I have my watercolor paper a little bit offset so that it's not exactly square on my card. So I know that was kind of more of an explanation than actually really showing you, but you can get the gist then to see how to do that invisible or no line watercolor. So thanks so much for joining me. If you have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments and I can help you out. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next Monday.